Chief Zebrowski, thank you for your time today and your continued dedication towards both the public safety sector and serving your community. Let's start with your background in law enforcement. Our audience would love to learn a little bit about your road to becoming Chief of Police here at Sayreville.
Well, actually, it's pretty simple. Born and raised in Sayreville, and at age 22, took the application, took the test, and shortly thereafter hired with the Sayreville Police Department, and I've spent the last 32 years here. And I've been very lucky. I've had the opportunity to serve in varied assignments throughout the department through those years, whether it's in the uniform or the detective division. And I think in particular for this case, as time in administration. So I had a good opportunity to see how this off-duty issue relates to the police department.
You mentioned how you've been a lifelong resident here in Sayreville, New Jersey. Did your familiarity of your surroundings play a role in your interest to serve the community? And were there any other factors that inspired you to pursue a career in law enforcement?
Yeah, I can't say that that was something I wanted to do as a small boy, but everyone has someone that they look up to, right? And I had an uncle who was a police officer in a local town, and he was that average, everyday city police officer that would walk the beat. Everybody knew his name. When he came up to somebody, he had that smile. He had the discussion with them. Hey, how's your day? What's going on? They all knew him. And when time came for needing help, assistance, he was the first one that they called for. And I looked at that and I said, that's really truly what the police officer needs to be, who we look up to. And I just said, if I get the opportunity to be in some type of service, that's what he's the person that I would like to be able to emulate. And I was very lucky that the opportunity came to me, and I hope I've done his reputation well.
Let's take a step into the world of extra duty. How has the need for off-duty officers evolved over time? Do you see a larger demand for these officers now in comparison to maybe earlier in your career?
I think that that's changed over time, in that the role of the off-duty officer has expanded exponentially over the last 10 or 15 years. It used to be that it was a very small row on certain construction sites when they were large in nature. Now, just about any type of construction, any type of security that may impact the public in any way, our officers are working off-duty jobs now.
So it seems that there are more opportunities for officers to work extra duty details. What are some examples of an officer maybe benefiting from working extra duty?
Well, it benefits the officers financially with an opportunity to earn a few extra dollars so that they can live a comfortable life, be able to do different things for their families. From the public safety standpoint, it is a huge opportunity to be able to make sure that our public is safer, whether it's simply just driving the roads, whether it's a pedestrian on a sidewalk, or perhaps the students at school.
Do you feel as though extra duty programs can make a positive impact within your community? And if so, how?
Well, I think, again, it brings it back to the street level where, communication is the biggest element, I think, in policing. And this is the opportunity for the officer to meet our public in many different respects, whether it's at the school setting, whether it's simply on a road setting, or for any other issue it is. And ultimately, this is still a people business. And that off-duty component has become a very big issue and relating to communication and people business.
For those who may not be aware, Sayreville PD does utilize extra duty solutions for their extra duty program administration needs. Chief, can you share some of the common challenges that you faced as it related to extra duty prior to partnering with EDS?
Well, first of all, I think because time has changed, the way that we were assigning and way we were managing our off-duty was antiquated. We had a clerk who was working, or this was supposed to be a part-time position, but it had grown to really a full-time position, and not really a full-time, it was a 24-hour position, and it simply couldn't be managed in that way anymore. And what was happening is, number one, we weren't managing our off-duty jobs the way we should have, and number two, morale with our officers was starting to suffer.
I'm sure fellow agencies who are listening right now can totally relate to that, especially if they're trying to manage all this in-house. Can you share with our audience how your program improved since partnering with EDS?
Well, first of all, let's remember that the Sayreville Police Department was the first agency that actually contracted with Extra Duty Solutions. And I would have to say, out of all the decisions I've made throughout my career, this may have been one of the best. And primarily that's because of the issue of officer morale. Extra duty issues were becoming a morale issue because there are thoughts, there were discussions, because first of all, there was no visuality, you couldn't see who was being assigned. So there became talk in the hallways, and this is very, very common in police departments, where officers are saying, I don't know why I wasn't assigned a particular job. How come some officer has more hours than another officer? So extra duties pretty much took that and put it on a app platform that allowed all our officers to see everything. From a management standpoint, we now have 24-hour coverage. So it wasn't that my part-time clerk, who might have been not working because she was on vacation, so now it was assigned to another clerk, and then after hours, it was assigned to a station commander. Now we have it integrated into one component. So whether you're calling in as a vendor at 6 o'clock in the morning, or a vendor that's calling in at 4 p.m., they're going to get the same person or the same system. It's uniform, and it's really made our lives a lot easier.
When you were evaluating EDS, obviously there were those in favor of this transition, but on the flip side, were there some against the transition?
Listen, change in a police department is very, very difficult, and everybody's always skeptical when you have change. And the first thing we wanted to do is, once we felt that this was a program that was going to be right for us, we sat down with our union officials, and we went hand in hand throughout the entire process to make sure that they understood what we were looking to do, what this program would do for us, and how it could benefit them. And we took their opinion. And I will tell you, they were looking for options as well, because we felt that the system was broke. Whether it was or wasn't, that's not the question, but there was that thought that it was broke. So they were looking for options. So I think that they were receptive. They looked at it, what we did. We took our time, and after having a pretty comprehensive review, we felt this was the best thing for us.
I can certainly see how the collaboration from both sides helped play a role in a positive outcome. Now that EDS has been working lockstep with your agency for some time now, what do you think the quote-unquote naysayers would say now about the transition to the EDS services?
Well, I would tell you universally, we don't have naysayers anymore. And to me, this is a burden that's taken off of me, right? There's one less issue that I have to deal with. I feel very comfortable, and I believe universally throughout the department, they feel very comfortable in this program.
Let's discuss the transition process in greater detail here. It sounds like you had some complex detail awarding procedures in place. So with that said, did the transition to EDS present any roadblocks, or was the transition smooth and streamlined?
It was actually very smooth. And what you need to do is, when you decide that this is the program you want, is you're going to sit down and you're going to map out comprehensively the program that you have. And we have something called the fairness rotation. And I will tell you, it started on paper, and then it went to an Excel spreadsheet, and it was convoluted. But we were able to take all those intricacies, work with representatives from Extra Duties. And once it was done, I will have to tell you, the transition was seamless.
Did you or your agency discover any unforeseen benefits since the implementation took place?
I don't know if I didn't expect, but I tell you, I didn't expect the transition to go so well, and it did. I didn't expect, or I expected to have some complaints throughout the time that we've had this, and I will tell you, I've had few, if none. I did expect that my clerk would be able to be more stress-free, and she is, and she's had more time to do her original responsibilities. And again, I go back to, I didn't want to stress out my officers, and I think that has been a big relief on their mind, that this works fair as it was supposed to work, and they're very comfortable when they either submit for a job, they get it, or they don't get it, they understand why. And to me, again, I go back to, it was a huge burden that was left off from me.
I think having that transparency is certainly key while creating a less stressful environment for your staff. Chief, I'd like to thank you again for your time. And before I let you go today, I have one last question. If there's someone from an agency right now who's considering partnering with a third-party administrator, what advice would you give them And what would you say to them about extra duty solutions?
Well, I would tell them that, listen, you need to really go out and be able to see what the options are out there, because otherwise you may have skeptics. In the end, however, you're going to choose EDS because comprehensively they put the best program out there, not simply for your officers and for your management, but the other component is the cost, and it's cost effective for your taxpayers, which is a huge plus in this day and age.
Okay, great. That was Chief Zebrowski of Sayreville PD, located in New Jersey. Thank you again, Chief, for your time today.